Just stop feeding, which seems like an easy concept, but honestly a little bit harder to grasp. And in today's video, I'm going to be going over some tips and tricks to hopefully stop you from feeding your matches, getting behind in lane, or just losing teamfights because you're doing the wrong thing. So here's how to stop feeding 101. The first thing comes from the laning phase. In the laning phase, depending who you're playing against, you need to adapt your build. A lot of players that I see in a majority of my games, even games that I watch, even if it's a losing lane or you're playing against a lane that does a ton of poke damage, people still refuse to buy certain items like extra regen, restorative shots, or anything like that. They just take free damage in lane and don't really have a fallback plan. Now, believe it or not, this starts a butterfly effect, whereas you're taking too much damage that they might dive you under the tower, or you're taking too much damage and you have to go back to base and reset, then you're losing waves and you're losing a ton of map pressure on that side of the map. That's why understanding your lane matchups is one of the biggest priorities when you start playing this game. And just by putting time into the game, you can understand who wins in what lanes. Just for a short example, if you're playing a character like Venator and you're against a Holiday and a Geist, for example, they're going to be doing a lot of poke damage. Because they're doing so much poke damage, it's probably in their best interest to buy an item like extra regen instead of buying an item like monster rounds or something else, so that when you're getting poked down, you can have the extra regen, you can go do your box rounds so that you're gaining HP and you're not really losing too much. That's one of the biggest things with laning phase that a lot of players that honestly just overlook. The next biggest thing that has to deal with pretty much everything is the straight positioning. And honestly, most feeding and Deadlock is just bad positioning in disguise. You're either too far forward, taking fights in the wrong area of the map, or putting yourself in situations where the enemy has every advantage before the fight even begins. And honestly, the good news about this is that this is probably one of the most fixable and misunderstood concepts in the entire game. Now, a huge reason why players feed is because they casually drift into these dangerous areas without realizing how vulnerable they are. One extra 10 to 15 meters in lane forward can completely change the fight. Suddenly, enemies can collapse from multiple different angles, rotate from other lanes, or jump you from high ground before you even have time to react. Meanwhile, if you stay positioned closer to safety, closer to your guardians, closer to your walkers, your stamina and escape tools eventually and actually matter. You have room to disengage, reposition, and of course, survive. And if you're trying to survive in Marvel Rivals and or Deadlock, definitely consider subscribing to this channel where I try to post content frequently, so definitely consider checking out. Make sure to like the video if you like it, and of course, let's get back into the action. Now, when you look at the map of Deadlock, usually you have your 3 waves, you have your jungle, and what I like to do is basically add a mid lane or add a line of scrimmage if you're familiar with football or any other sport, where a line goes directly center through the map, where it's basically 2 equal halves. This theoretical line has helped a lot of people understand how to push the waves if they're too far extended or if they're playing too passively. You essentially have to think of this line of scrimmage. If you're passing it, you're at a disadvantage. If you're below it, you're at an advantage because you have quicker priority of people getting to your lanes faster from your team, and you have the ability to rotate freely and, rather safely unless someone is invading. Whereas if you're on the opposite side and you're pushing into the enemy team, you have to understand that your teammates may not be able to get to you to help you if you're getting caught out or anything of that situation or stature. That's why it's a good idea to try to keep that midline in the back of your mind. Now, the biggest habit a lot of players should make on the regular is asking yourselves 2 questions. The first question is, where is the enemy team? The second question is, who is missing? This is why your minimap is one of the most important tools in the entire game. And if I could say something, I would say that 80% of this game is literally just looking at the map. The 20% is more about aiming and other mechanics. The 80% is rather large, so understanding how the map works is definitely a crucial aspect. Now, you should be checking your map constantly, and honestly, probably every few seconds, the minimap tells you whether you are safe to pressure, invade, farm, or take objectives. If 5 enemies are visible on the opposite side of the map, your risk level drops dramatically. That's your opportunity to invade jungle camps, secure objectives, or pressure waves safely. But you still have to consider the odd possibility of that one person being on your side of the map or trying to mirror you. So just keeping that in the back of your mind is a great idea. Another thing you should consider is when you think of that person is missing, you need to think who exactly is missing. Is it a side laner like Venator, like Lady Geist, maybe Wraith, 7, trying to catch up and farm or try to propel their game further? Then you have to think, Can they kill me if they find me alone? Are they stronger than you? Can they kill you in a 1v1? And of course, do you win that matchup? If you win that matchup, then you're probably at better odds of taking that side lane and trying risking that 1v1. Then this comes from what I previously stated with the lane ideas, where matchup knowledge becomes extremely critical. Now, some heroes thrive in those isolated jungle fights. Heroes like Drifter, Haze, Calico, Seven, and Furnace are terrifying if they catch you alone while farming. If you're playing someone like Lash or some of the early M1 carries, and you're blindly running into a Drifter in close quarters, you may simply lose the fight no matter how well you play it. That doesn't mean the game is unfair or unbalanced, it means your positioning and decision making should account for that risk before you even walk into that area. Now, some things to consider is, are they ahead in souls? If you answer yes to this question, that means they're probably having more items, that means more damage, more survivability, more movement, and just better odds at winning the fight. And you have to think about their ultimates. If they have their ultimates ready to go, that's a lot of damage coming towards you, especially depending on who it is. And another big thing to consider is this fight actually favorable for you? Can you win this fight? Is it worth taking this risk? Because not all enemies are equally dangerous at all times. A hero with their ultimate ability can completely change a jungle encounter, and a Furnace with his ult ready is a massive threat. A Drifter with ultimate ability becomes incredibly dangerous in isolated fights. Meanwhile, some heroes are much weaker without their ultimates. Tracking this information gives you a huge advantage before the fight even starts. I'm kind of slurring my words, I don't know why, I might be stupid. But above everything else, there's one rule that matters more than any other. Always clear the wave first. Now, I said this and preached this time and time again in some of my other videos, but I just want to talk about it again, because I keep seeing this even in Eternus lobbies. Wave control is the foundation of good positioning in Deadlock. Waves give massive soul income every 30 seconds. It gives you objective pressure, it gives you map control, information, and it gives you space to safely rotate with the zip lines. Now, one of the biggest mistakes newer players make, and even people in higher ranks that should probably be watching this video, is abandoning a pushed-in wave to go chase jungle camps, buffs, or side objectives. Then they get collapsed on and wonder why they died. The problem isn't the jungle camp. The problem is that they ignored the wave state. When you push a wave into an enemy guardian or walker, you can force the enemy team to respawn. Somebody has to clear it. That creates pressure and buys you room to safely move around the map. That's the key concept. Good wave management creates safe positioning opportunities. Bad wave management creates free deaths, especially in this current meta, or this current character, that being Wallbreaker Victor. If the waves are being shoved into your tower, chances are that Victor is going to run into your base. If you're shoving the waves out, the Victor has to clear the waves, you get an idea of where he's positioned, and you can allocate some of your teammates to go deal with the character. That's why understanding where your wave is fundamentally crucial for pretty much everything. You have to think of it like this. If your wave is still sitting near your side of the map, so let's say under your guardian, you walk deep into the enemy territory, you're massively overextended. The enemy can collapse on you while your team and your wave are nowhere nearby to help, because clearing those waves allows you to use the zipline or the hyperline. If you don't have that priority, your teammates can't get to you super quickly. They would still be able to get to you, but it'll take a lot longer. So understanding your escape routes and knowing if you can have backup is a good idea. Versus if you push the wave first. Enemies reveal themselves because they're dealing with the wave, and you'll have a good idea of where people are positioned. Rotations become predictable because you might have one side pushed in while the others aren't. That means people have to rotate around the map, and objectives become pressured. You might have earned priority, walker, taking ability, and your risk level drops dramatically. That's why as high-level Deadlock players prioritize waves before almost anything else. And finally, one important thing to understand, sometimes dying is worth it. Not feeding repeatedly, not throwing yourself into impossible fights, but trading your life for a critical objective like securing Walker at 1 HP and locking a flex out for your team can absolutely be worth it. The difference, I would say, honestly, is intention. Good deaths create advantages. Bad deaths happen because you walked into dangerous areas without really understanding what's going on at all. And that's what positioning comes down to. Understanding where you are, understanding where the enemy is, understanding what objectives matter, and knowing when a fight is actually worth taking. Now, at the end of the day, things like mechanical skill and others can make the difference between you feeding or losing or even winning. But the big picture is definitely thinking about positioning. Even if you might not be the most mechanically inclined or anything of the sort, understanding where to put yourself in certain scenarios is generally a better idea so that you're not always getting caught out, you can farm safely, and be able to, do something impactful for the rest of your team. Even if you're not getting kills, you're not doing a billion damage, if you're playing for the team, getting at least objectives if you're not doing anything else, then that's probably a good idea. That's why I put so much emphasis on just positioning as a whole. While I have other videos talking about mechanical skill and positioning and lane stuff and whatnot, just understanding the depths of positioning and trading in the early stages of the laning phase are two of the best ways to honestly just win in the game. And if you found this content helpful in any way, shape, or form, it was a little bit of a shorter video. Hopefully you found it helpful, or not, whatever the case may be. Like I said, make sure to subscribe, make sure to like the video. I hope you have a great and safe day, and I'll catch you in the next one.